Welcome back. This informational video is on how we prepared ourselves and our son for the modified Ravitch procedure for a combination case of Pectus excavatum and Pectus carinatum. As mentioned in the prior video, information shared here is not meant to be medical advice, but a parent perspective. Please consult with your own provider to learn if the info shared is right for your situation. For background, we traveled out of state for this procedure and had family members watching our other child. We decided to pursue surgery approximately 5 months before it took place and received the surgery date about 3 3/4 months prior to the actual surgery. This provided plenty of time to prepare both physically and mentally. In order to not get overwhelmed, once we received the date, I started several Google documents that could be regularly updated. These included questions for the surgeon and support staff, a packing document for my son, which I shared with him so he could add items as needed, packing for myself, a schedule for life while we were away for the caregivers to take care of our other child, food for travel and food for home, and a parent and friend outreach letter that included a link to Sign Up Genius for post-op recovery visits. I will discuss how we prepared from a timeline perspective and regularly reference info by mental preparations and physical preparations. I will also share my stars, the things that worked well, and my wishes, things that I would change at the end of each video. So to start, I knew that I needed some time to mentally process that we were even moving in towards surgery. So I did not begin planning until 3 months out. I took that first chunk of time, 3 weeks or so, to just kind of absorb the fact that we were doing surgery and to confirm with my child that's what he desired. At the time, we did have a strong recommendation from the surgeon that physically it was best to pursue this option. So that is part of how we decided to move forward. So at 3 months out, we began mental preparations, including research about the procedure itself, and refined the questions we had for the surgeon and support staff. And we began to trickle that information, what we had prior to receiving answers, to our son, being careful not to overwhelm him in the process. Physically, we began prioritizing sleep more so than usual. We also doubled down on making sure that we were all receiving good quality food and water. So that was our 3 month out. We did not focus too much on making any sort of concrete plans, but really starting to prepare ourselves. At 2 months out, from a mental perspective, we started having more discussions with our child about how he felt about surgery. We started talking about the entertainment and activities he desired to have while in the hospital. We knew that the hospital stay was estimated to be about 5 days in length for recovery. So we wanted to make sure that depending on where he was at in terms of his state of mind, he had plenty of things to keep himself occupied. I began to brainstorm food preparations and kind of a batch cooking plan, as I knew that upon return from surgery that I would want to be focused on my child and not what we needed to eat. We also identified exercises to begin with the idea that his muscle mass was going to decrease during recovery time because of the inability to move and do things as he regularly did. So we started to discuss what exercises would be best to focus on in the coming months. We also identified supplements to start that would support his recovery and strength going in. I also began sending those questions I researched 3 months out to the surgeon's office. And for my own sake, I grouped these by like items: the preparation, the procedure, and the recovery. I also began sending emails to the school principal and school counselor to learn about how to approach school absences and schoolwork. It was estimated that the child would need about 2 weeks for recovery outside of school. As it worked out, we ran into a school break, so we actually had just over 3 weeks. I also drafted, but did not send emails to teachers to begin to focus on how we would approach schoolwork that was missed. I also researched items to buy. For the hospital, we looked at having sleep masks, blue light blocking glasses, slippers, and an AeroPress for my own coffee consumption. And for home, we looked at slip-on sneakers, button-up pajamas, button-up shirts, a wedge pillow for elevated sleeping, and a new shower head. I will discuss all of these in a more explicit video that goes into the items in detail and why they were helpful. We also reviewed potential dates for pre-surgery friend gathering, and we secured a list of friends from our son. And last but not least, we booked our hotel for our stay away from home. At 1 month out, our mental preparations look like saying no to invitations to not only remain healthy, but to provide some space and ease before the procedure. I began researching healing visualizations to support our child after the procedure, and many discussions were had with our child. Let him lead with the information as to not overwhelm him. Separately, I chose to do some EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, with a therapist around my own fears of him being in pain after the procedure. I think that this greatly helped in order for me to have the space and capacity to focus all my efforts on supporting him in his recovery. Physical preparations look like batch cooking and freezing food. I employed the help of a friend, and at the end had 17 meals in the freezer before we departed for the procedure. I packed duplicate bags for myself, one for the hospital and one for the hotel, in an effort to not have to think about anything but my son's recovery. Things that included a box of Kleenex, lip balm, headphones, audiobooks, etc., were super supportive. I also began packing my child's bag with lots of input from him. We began downloading audiobooks and child-friendly series for his iPad and purchased books that were requested. Lastly, one major thing that we did was hosted a friend gathering. And during that time, I pulled his friends aside and had them create well-wish videos for him. This was a great opportunity for him to connect with those that he enjoys spending time with, and we luckily had an unseasonably warm day that day where they were able to get outside and do lots of physical things that would be restricted once he returned. I used a blank paper calendar and wrote in the items of focus and themes for each week to help me keep on track with all of the details mentioned. It also helped me not feel overwhelmed because I felt like I had a direction and something to consult. From a STARS perspective, the things that I'm so glad I did, the things that went well, I'm glad to have started planning so far out. Utilizing the calendar with themed weeks helped greatly to prevent overwhelm and really helped me stay on track throughout the process. I'm glad that I took action to work through my own fears so that I could support my child through this process. I'm glad that I packed duplicate bags so I always had what I needed when I was either at the hospital or the hotel. And I am glad to have placed so much emphasis on encouraging friend connection prior to surgery. I set up a sign-up genius in this process for post-op visits and had people just sign up when they were available, and that freed up mind space for me. I sent a document to friends' parents for this gathering and the post-op visits. It also included information that was important to my son, like how to physically respond to him, because he was afraid that kids that would regularly come up to him and be very physical were going to impact him painfully following surgery. And lastly, my wishes are things that I wished were different, I would have changed in this preparation process. I would have liked to have known the supplement restrictions sooner. And this is on me because the hospital communicated this, but I missed it. I would have purchased an at-home spirometer and worked on helping my son strengthen his lungs prior to the procedure. I wished I had known about needing a shower stool sooner, so I could have ordered that ahead of time. And I wished I'd discussed my son's view of what healing meant to him sooner so that I could incorporate that into a healing visualization, especially for him. I have included links below for the items that I've mentioned that we purchased, as well as a healing visualization that I have now recorded since the procedure. Please take a look and see if there's anything that is helpful for you. I look forward to sharing more with you about the procedure in the next video.